And a very happy Wednesday to you at 12:07 in the West. Talk Radio 790 KABC, the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wangs in Culver City.
John, last night, KTVU Fox 2 hosted a mayoral debate between the two top contenders to replace Sheng Thao. That would be former Congresswoman Barbara Lee and former City Councilman Lauren Taylor. And I can't put my finger on it, but there's something so familiar to me about Lauren Taylor.
And that should be part of an overall public safety strategy, which Measure NN laid out, which the voters voted for in November.
Barbara, thank you. Lauren?
Absolutely.
Well, if he wants that job, he knows how to get there.
Absolutely.
Now, speaking of which, Randy, our little Shangy is all grown up now.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And apparently, she wants to star in the next edition of The Godfather.
There is a bonkers. Well, usually almost every story we do out of Oakland is bonkers. This goes beyond bonkers because this is one of the most insane things that you or I or anybody listening has ever heard about mob-style hits going out in the city of Oakland that have a connection to the Sheng Thao corruption case.
Now, what's funny is usually the violence is Looney Tunes cartoonish level that we talk about in that city.
And we have one of those today where 3 Chevrons got crashed into in the span of 30 minutes.
But in this particular story, I defy you to listen to the whole thing and walk away from it with any other conclusion than everyone in elected office in that city belongs in prison.
You know, that's what a mayor do.
Oh, yes, we know.
All right, let's get right into this because ABC 7 in the Bay Area got the best in the business on this story, and that's Dan Noyes. He is one of the best investigative reporters out there. And this story, it sounds so crazy it has to be made up, but unfortunately it's true.
It involves hits. It involves gunfire. It involves bribes that are demanded and not paid. It involves charges dropped against people who tried to carry out an assassination. It is wild, wild, wild.
For more, let's go to ABC 7, Bay Area, and Dan Noyes.
We're learning more about a wild shootout that may be connected to the federal corruption case involving former Oakland Mayor Sheng Thao and...
Shangy's back in the news.
Hi, Sheng.
And we still got our Oakland A's, baby.
They're in West Sacramento now.
That may be connected to the federal corruption case involving former Oakland Mayor Sheng Thao and others.
Yes, we are hearing from the man targeted in that shooting and a neighbor who saw it all happen.
New at 6, ABC 7 News I-Team reporter Dan Noyes is here with the story. Dan.
Well, Dan and Mario Juarez is in a difficult place. He can't speak out because he could be a witness in that federal corruption case.
Oh, boy.
How is this not on the front page of every newspaper in the state and every newspaper in the nation?
Well, Dan and Mario Juarez is in a difficult place. He can't speak out because he could be a witness in that federal corruption case against former Mayor Sheng Thao and others. Still, he wants to know why police arrested 2 suspects in December for the shooting at his home, but released them without warning him.
What? So you have somebody who is a potential witness to the corruption of the Dong family, Sheng Thao, and her boyfriend, Andre Jones. And 2 people came to shoot him in December, got arrested, and got let off?
Happens every day. Nothing to see here.
You can still see a bullet hole in the rain gutter.
This isn't real.
You can still see a bullet hole in the rain gutter at Mario Juarez's house in the Fruitvale neighborhood, 9 months after the shootout.
And then it stopped there and it shot like 2 times.
Sheila Campos lives across the street. She tells me she was headed to work after 9 p.m. when she saw a car drive by 3 times, firing at Juarez's house and Suburban.
That's a hit.
Yes, that is the definition of a hit job.
On the last pass.
This wasn't random gang members shooting at each other because they got to break into the Chevron first. This was an organized takeout of somebody.
They came by, 3 different times shooting into the man's house?
Yes.
On the last pass, Mario Juarez came outside with his .40 caliber Glock.
I love that in this city where they all support all of these programs that are violence prevention oriented, Operation Ceasefire, everyone is packing not just heat, but heavy duty heat.
Not a day goes by where I don't wish I could just wave a magic wand and silence the gunfire.
Good luck with that, babe.
And he starts shooting back, like firing back. Pa, 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 pa.
Oh, my. Well, that's making the drops.
I love the reenactment.
And he starts shooting back, like firing back. Pa, 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 pa.
So it was more than a 6-shooter.
Oh, yeah. No, this is a shootout at the OK Corral right on the streets of Oakland.
That magazine had at least 8 rounds.
Pa, 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 pa.
Now, wait, count them.
1. It's 8.
Pa, 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 pa.
I wonder if she edited the pops for public consumption.
Let me just save Oakland Pop 8. I'm sure in December when we do Drops of the Year, I'll totally remember what that is.
And the car just kind of skeeted off, but kind of fast. And he was in the middle of the street shooting, like trying to get him.
So he just stood there in the middle of the street firing into the night?
Yeah, so the car comes to his house 3 times, shooting into his home. They don't get him. He comes out with this Glock, starts shooting at them. As they speed off, he runs out into the middle of the street and starts shooting at the car.
Seems about right.
I've been speaking to Mario Juarez by an encrypted phone app. He tells me he can't be in Oakland right now because he still fears for his life.
So this guy's in hiding.
Which, of course, is normal procedure for someone who is the witness in a crime.
He sent a written statement first reported by the San Francisco Chronicle that says 2 suspects were nabbed in December 2024 tied to these attacks, but justice, it never came. Oakland police made the arrests, but the DA's office, just days after Pamela Price left office because of the recall, allowed the suspects to walk without charges.
For people that were in the middle of an organized hit, people that shot up a house?
Okay, so this is a potential assassination of a witness in a federal crime. The shooters were caught by the police. They were placed in custody. They were waiting for the DA to file charges, and then the DA abruptly drops the charges against them, lets them out, doesn't notify the victim. I wonder what he did to piss Pamela Price off.
And this was the dropping of the charges was right after Pammy Price got left out of office.
Quite frankly.
But wait a minute. It was her ally that took over because they haven't replaced the district attorney yet. And it was someone who was part of her administration that then took over.
That's right. Pammy is part of this story, too.
I've been bipped several times.
It's all connected, people.
And without informing Juarez that the men who may have shot at him were back on the streets.
Wouldn't that be the first person you'd want to inform that, hey, the people who tried to assassinate you are free to go?
Since you know they're probably going to try to kill him again.
And why would you let the hired hitmen out on the street when you could easily press them and get them to roll on who hired them?
Equity, Randy, equity.
And without informing Juarez that the men who may have shot at him were back on the streets.
It's almost like the DA's office told those 2 guys, go finish the job.
It almost seems like that.
It's an issue of safety, right?
Yes, absolutely. It's a
Boy, everyone's just doing that in Oakland now.
It's the favorite word.
And he said absolutely.
It's an issue of safety, right?
Yes, absolutely. It's definitely an issue of safety.
Ernie Castillo is Mario Juarez's attorney.
When you have people come into your house and you get into a shootout and people shoot at you, that's a huge concern. So
I would say it's a little more than a concern.
Wow, he's downplaying that.
Well, it is Oakland. I mean, this kind of crap happens every day.
I said, hell no, baby boy. Let me get up on out of here.
They may be a little desensitized to the nightly violence up there.
They need to get out more if that's the case.
That's a huge concern. So we should have been notified by that former administration 100%.
Mario Juarez recently had a fraud case against him dropped. He was accused of bouncing checks for a mailer that supported Sheng Thao in her race for mayor.
That's how I know this guy.
Oh, yes. We've heard of him before.
So this was the guy that was paid by the dongs to hire the printer to put out those racist ads against Lauren Taylor in the 2022 mayoral race, and then he stiffed the printing company.
Didn't he bounce the check?
Yes.
Mario Juarez recently had a fraud case against him dropped. He was accused of bouncing checks for a mailer that supported Sheng Thao in her race for mayor. As part of that case, Juarez accused then District Attorney Pamela Price of demanding $25,000 from him to help her recall.
What?
Okay, so according to him, the DA demanded a $25,000 bribe after he was accused of illegally putting out a mailer paid for by the dongs on behalf of Sheng Thao right before the election. When he didn't pay the bribe, her office, after she left, but her allies were still in charge, dropped all of the charges against the people who allegedly tried to assassinate him, and they didn't let him know about it.
How is this real life? This is even the most creative writer in the world couldn't come up with a movie like this.
No, if you tried to sell this as a mob movie, they'll say, nobody's going to believe this. Go back and re-edit.
Juarez accused then District Attorney Pamela Price of demanding $25,000 from him to help her recall, saying
she should have known better. He writes bad checks.
Yeah. That check would bounce all the way to San Francisco.
Saying when he refused, she filed the criminal case against him.
In that motion,
So Pamela Price finds out that this guy's implicated in some shady dealings with Sheng and the dongs, and she tries to get a cut out of him. And when he says, I'm not playing along with you, then she files criminal charges against him that didn't hold up.
And then her office releases the people who were the attempted assassins who tried to kill him by shooting up his house.
Saying when he refused, she filed the criminal case against him.
In that motion were declarations and statements by witnesses, including Mario Juarez, that the former administration had tried to shake down Mario for $25,000. And if he had not contributed to that campaign for $25,000, then they would charge him.
Through her.
That campaign was the Don't Recall Pamela Price campaign.
And keep in mind, this is the top law enforcement officer in Oakland, in Alameda County.
Shaky down Pamela Price.
Quite frankly.
And if he had not contributed to that campaign for $25,000, then they would charge him.
Through her attorneys, Price denied asking Juarez for money. Back to the shooting in June, neighbors confirmed to me that the day after the gunfire, the FBI canvassed the neighborhood looking for witnesses and surveillance video. And just 10 days later, agents raided the homes of then Mayor Sheng Thao, her partner Andre Jones, and David and Andy DeWong.
That's when Shengy had to put on her underwear.
Oh, yeah. She claimed she was naked when they gave her the pat down.
That's right. I like that. That was amazing.
Owners of California Waste Solutions. They're all charged with conspiracy, bribery, mail-in wire fraud, and more.
And apparently one of them ordered a hit.
Well, maybe more.
Federal prosecutors also claim Thao agreed to purchase modular units for the homeless from Evolutionary Homes, a company run by the DeWongs and Mario Juarez.
Of course!
Wait a minute. You're trying to tell me that's not legal?
So the parties that illegally got Sheng Thao into office through a whole bunch of different shady dealings for promises that Sheng Thao made to them, not only was going to give appointments to commissions that they wanted, not only was going to give sweetheart contracts to California Waste Solutions, but the dongs and this guy, the guy that got shot at, they had a company that was going to build homes for the homeless.
So keep this in mind the next time you vote to raise your own taxes for more money for the homeless. This is where your money is going. It's going to the dongs and this guy who keeps getting shot at.
The product that we have is a single-family resident home.
Though he is not named in the indictment, Juarez appears to be unindicted co-conspirator one who acted as a go-between for the DeWongs and Sheng Thao.
Wait a second. So is what happened here that he decided he wasn't going to go along with this anymore? Maybe he felt the pressure. He was going to talk to the feds. And so the dongs decided they needed to take this guy out?
Well, it may not be the dongs that decided to take this guy out. It could have been Sheng. It could be the Bontas. Don't forget, The Dongs are the political benefactors of the Bontas. It could be Pamela Price. Pamela Price was the one who was demanding the bribes because she was cut out of the action. She wanted in, and they didn't include her.
Now Mario Juarez says they saw me as a threat, not because I'm perfect, because I wouldn't bow. They wanted me dead to keep their secret safe, to silence a voice that wouldn't shut up. They picked the wrong man.
He was going to talk, and they were going to silence him.
Dead men tell no tales.
The DA's office now tells me they are taking a fresh look at the shooting case. 1 month before.
Yeah, there is a new DA, and the new DA has no ties to Pamela Price and whatever corruption was going on in there. So maybe they can figure out why we let 2 assassins out on the street.
Well, when you start pulling at this strings, though, I mean, who knows what you'll uncover.
The DA's office now tells me they are taking a fresh look at the shooting case. 1 month before that happened, Mario Juarez says he was beaten by 10 men outside the headquarters of California Waste Solutions.
That is some mob stuff right there.
Okay, keep in mind, I'm going to repeat it again. California Waste Solutions and the Dong family, they are the benefactors of the Attorney General of the state of California, Rob Bonta, and his worthless wife, who's in the assembly, who wants to be the next superintendent of public instruction.
And when Rob Bonta was in the assembly, he crafted legislation that benefited this family, this criminal organization.
He is the top law enforcement officer in the state of California, and he's the one launching all of these nuisance lawsuits against Donald Trump and the federal government. That's the same guy.
He expected to testify in the federal corruption case coming up. Dan Ahmed.
What a story.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Jim.
I think the anchors at ABC7 were at a loss for words on that one.
Well, I mean, come on. This isn't Gotham.
John, based on everything you heard, can you give a succinct recap as to what was just told on ABC7?
Oh, my God. Where to start? So I guess you start out with the mailer that goes out at the 11th hour. Sheng is running for mayor against a candidate who is neck and neck with her in the polls. She might lose. They need her to win so they can get all the contracts. At the 11th hour, Sheng and her boyfriend and the Dongs and this man who got shot at all meet up together. I think it was in a park. And they decide that there's going to be a hit piece, a mailer at the last minute that goes out against this opponent that's paid for by the Dongs. That's all illegal because it violates all kinds of spending limits and contribution limits in races, municipal races in the city of Oakland. They put this mailer out. It works. They knock the guy out of the race. Sheng wins. Instead of paying the printer for the mailer, they bounce checks and stiff the printer. So the printer never gets paid. After this happens, there is then an investigation launched into what took place at the end of that campaign. You then have the district attorney who's looking at it, Pamela Price. She's on the bubble because she's an idiot too. She then says, I want $25,000. He says no, the guy that was the go-between between the Dongs and Sheng. She then files charges against him for criminal activity. Then Sheng, of course, is elected mayor, and she's promising all kinds of things to all kinds of people, including positions on boards and commissions, which she then follows through with. Or I guess you could say it was her boyfriend that was allegedly doing that. She's also throwing contracts to the Dongs and to the man who got shot at for these modular units for the homeless. So all of the money that was supposed to be spent on the homeless is going to her political benefactors. Then the feds and others start catching wind of what's going on, and they're worried that this guy is going to talk to the feds. They know that the chief of staff of Sheng Thao decided to drop a dime on Sheng after she was dropped by Sheng from her position at the city. They think this guy is going to cooperate because he has charges that have been filed against him by the local district attorney. So someone somewhere decides it's a good idea to put a hit out on him, and they shoot up his house. He then survives. The people who did the shooting, allegedly, get arrested by the Oakland PD. They go to jail. They're awaiting charges from the local district attorney, same district attorney who allegedly tried to shake him down for $25,000. He didn't pay it. She loses the recall. Her hand-picked successor then decides to drop all of the charges against the people who are in jail for trying to assassinate him, allegedly, and doesn't tell him that she's doing that. Somewhere along the lines, they have 10 people beat the living hell out of this guy right outside their offices. And now he's afraid for his life, and he is not in the city of Oakland, and he thinks they're going to try to kill him again. This is real life.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I don't even know if you could turn this into a mob movie. This is more like a slapstick comedy.
Well, everybody involved is not only incredibly corrupt, but incredibly incompetent.
And keep in mind, these are political allies of Gavin Newsom. And Rob Bonta and his wife are deeply tied into all of these people. So when you think of how one-party rule in California doesn't work, just remember it's unbelievably corrupt, too.
Well, and think about the position that Bonta's in. Going back to 2021, if there were any possible state investigations into the corruption of this family, of this company, you know they were getting squashed. That's why it took the feds getting involved for something to happen to California Waste Solutions, to the Dongs, and to Sheng, because the top law enforcement official is compromised.
And keep in mind, whenever we have the judge who was the one who led the recall campaign against Sheng Thao on this program, she's always very cryptic when she talks about the origins of this investigation. She does not believe that Sheng was the target. And that's something that Sheng says all the time, too. She said there are bigger fish in Sacramento who the feds are looking at. I'll let you connect those dots.
There's only one question then, Johnny.
What's that?
Who ordered the hit?
That is a very good question. And I have my own ideas, but I'm curious to hear yours at 800-222-5222, 1-800-222-5222. Who do you think ordered the hit on Mario Juarez? I'm curious to hear what you're thinking. 800-222-5222, 1-800-222-5222. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, if you want to go back and listen to any of our past Sheng Thao or Oakland Insanity segments, that's easy to do.
Someday they might be considered evidence. Go to KABC.com, click on podcasts, go to the Apple Podcast app, iHeart, Spotify, search for The John Phillips Show, hit subscribe. You can download all the episodes. You can do a Google on the YouTube or get that handy-dandy KABC app. Search KABC AM in the Apple App Store or the Android Store. It's the easiest way to listen live to this radio station and download all the podcasts. You can listen back to this first hour and count the pops yourself.
And he starts shooting back, like firing back. Pa, 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 pa.
All right. Who ordered the hit? Who ordered the hit on Mario Juarez?
Who are some of our potential suspects, Johnny?
Okay, so I guess some of the potential suspects, I guess the Dong family would be at the top of the list.
Considering the guy got beaten in front of California Waste Solutions, they might be prime suspect number one.
Okay. Prime suspect number two could be Sheng's boyfriend, because it was Sheng's boyfriend that organized the meeting that led to the illegal campaign mailer going out in the first place.
And what do we find out with the FBI probe? That Sheng's boyfriend was getting paid a fake salary from California Waste Solutions.
There you go. So I guess he and California Waste Solutions could be regarded as one and the same. You also potentially have the Bontas. Because don't forget, Rob Bonta was in line to be the next governor of California. He's tied into all of this insanity. The last thing he needs is for all of his dirty laundry to be aired in a public forum. Then you have Sheng. We all assume that she's as dumb as they come, but she was able to get elected mayor of Oakland. So she has some political skills, even though we don't see it. Clearly, she has some.
What if the dumb thing's an act?
And that's the truth.
Then let me tell you, the Oscars, which took place a couple of weeks ago, they missed out on leading actress. It should be her.
You know, I'm equally as frustrated, right? But it did not start under my watch.
Who do you think did it? Who do you think ordered the hit? 800-222-5222, 1-800-222-5222. All right, let's go to the phones. Who ordered the hit? Paul and Van Nuys. Paul, hello.
You know what? Oakland, California, I recall something in history. You know, people think of Wyatt Earp. Wyatt Earp, it was Bill Tillman, was the longest and toughest United States Marshal. He was a state senator. He was sent as a bounty hunter, as a city marshal in a place called Cromwell, Oklahoma. That sounds like Oakland, California, with the corruption. And he was shot to death by a federal prohibition agent, making it unbelievable. A federal agent shot this man to death. That's what Oakland reminds me of the oil town in Cromwell. We think of Deadwood. So in history, maybe it repeats itself, but it does rhyme. And so Oakland, California, it is a throwback to the Old West, the corruption. That's all I have to say.
All right. Thank you for the call, sir.
It's wild, wild west out here.
That is very true. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, you're monitoring the mailbag.
Cammie writes in at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com and says, let's see Rob Bonta meet the moment on this one, shady bastard. No wonder he's not running for governor. Nicholas writes in saying, we live in a simulation. It's like a mix between The Wire and Only Murders in the Building. Who the hell is writing the script in Oakland? Greg writes in and says, the entire political climate in Oakland reminds me of the expression, if you lay down with pigs, eventually you'll get muddy or maybe shot.
Maybe both.
Let's see. Brad writes in and says, this has the Dong family written all over it, no doubt, but Shengi is caught in the web on this one. Ron writes in and says, hey, John and Randy, Sheng will not do very well in prison. I bet she's going to take a plea deal and start ratting people out to get a lesser sentence. And you know what, Ron? She could do that, but apparently then the Dongs will take a hit out on her.
Okay, the one saving grace here is that all of these people deserve each other.
If you wonder how a city gets to be such a complete dumpster fire where nothing works, where crime is running rampant, it's because everyone who's running the city is a criminal.
It's a lot of crime now.
What's funny is you turn on the news and they're talking about everything that doesn't matter when the gold is right in front of their face and they all choose to ignore it. Let's go to Sal in West Hollywood. Sal, hello.
Hey, John, Randy, I love your show. Listening, I can't help but to make the association between the Asian community and the Italian community in all the major cities, Chinatown in San Francisco, Chinatown in Chicago, Chinatown in New York, and elsewhere, where the cultures are the same. They keep the business within the community and to themselves so that it's less leaks. So there's obviously a connection here. With the criminal activity. And to take that a little deeper, I mean, we're seeing criminality in politics, and this is just reminds me of the Chicago on the South Side when the early days of the Prohibition era, where everything was a free-for-all. And that's what's happening in Oakland, especially with all the money that's come into the state with this homeless situation, the billions of dollars that we've talked about before that have been allocated for the homeless situation. This, it's one of these people. To find out who it's going to be, I would stay tuned to your show to find out because it's something that we all should be aware of. But, we also have to bring the press into this because they are complicit in all this, not reporting on the criminal activity, allowing it to continue without really addressing the real narrative instead of, the headlines. And I just had to make the comment and really want to hear from you guys to follow up on this and find out what the result is. So thanks again for the platform, and I continue to listen.
Well, thank you so much for the call, and you're right. This is straight up gangsterism. Now, Randy, you've been able to find some sound of the former DA in Alameda County, Pamela Price, talking about Mario Juarez.
She did it on the first episode of her podcast, Pamela Price Unfiltered.
Quite frankly.
This was at the very end of her first episode of the podcast.
She called me a crime boss.
What? Well, that's going to be saved.
She called me a crime boss. Can you believe that? This is what a crime boss really looks like. What inspired this ridiculous headline was the equally ridiculous claim by one Mario Juarez that I tried to extort $25,000 from him.
Well, then why did your office let out his assassins?
Yeah, that seems kind of shady to me.
For those who don't know who Mario Juarez is, Google him. Mario Juarez.
You did a little more than that.
Mario Juarez, net worth, search.
Every single person involved in Alameda County is a freaking criminal.
Mario Juarez is a real estate broker whose license was revoked for fraud, and someone that has a long list of angry clients and business partners who allege he swindled them.
And then you tried to swindle him.
Is there no honor among thieves?
The truth is that the Alameda County District Attorney's Office was in the process of charging Mario Juarez for passing bad checks.
And then you thought, hey, we'll make this all go away if you contribute to my Don't Recall Me campaign.
$25,000, that's all it'll cost you.
At least 5 months before he claims that we had this conversation. On December 9th of 2024, the District Attorney's Office filed its response to Mario's motion to dismiss his charges. And there are 3 declarations in that response that clearly...
They did get dismissed, and that's when the Alameda County DA's office let out the assassins.
Clearly show that Mario Juarez is lying through his teeth. The first is the declaration of Monique Dornenberg, which was filed under penalty of perjury, and she attests to the fact that she received the police report in May of 2023, that she processed it in the ordinary course of business, just like any other non-specialized case, that no one spoke to her. There was no communication with anyone from upper management when she processed the case. And
yeah, because you did not make it go away because he didn't give you the $25,000.
She sounds like a Disney villain.
Well, she is.
She called me a crime boss.
You know, all of the drops we have of her are gold, but that might be my new favorite.
That could be a dark horse for the best drop of 2025.
Could be.
She called me a crime boss.